Discover the incredible transformation of a hotel cleaner who unexpectedly fell asleep in a bill. Maria's heart raced as she pushed her cleaning cart down the glimmering hallway of the Grand Hotel. The glow of the Chicago skyline flooded in through the massive windows, casting shadows over her worn-out uniform. As the laughter of well-dressed patrons pierced her thoughts, she felt the weight of her reality service to the successful, yet hardly seen. With each sweeping motion, her mind drifted to her children, the 7- and 9-year-olds who filled her world with love but also worry. Late shifts meant cracked smiles at the dinner table and exhaustion washed away in quick showers. But her elderly mother's illness loomed heavy, a constant reminder of the burdens she carried. That night, as the voices echoed through the halls, Maria succumbed to exhaustion. She rested atop a mountain of crisp white linens in an unoccupied suite, surrendering to a world of sleep. The sounds around her faded, and for a moment, she was free. Until the crinkle of paper stirred her awake. Her fingers slipped across a delicate note, softly resting on a stack of cash underneath it. "Thank you for your exceptional service," it read, accolades peppered with gratitude. Hope flickered within her. This was not just money, it was a lifeline. Her heart hammered as she clutched the note. She hadn't expected anything like this, a sudden burst of fortune that shone brighter than the skyline outside. Yet, when she returned to the front desk, a sense of dread settled in her chest. The manager waved her off, a smirk barely concealed as he glanced away. Dismissed. It felt like a slap in the face, a grim reminder of her place in the world. Fists clenched, she turned back, only to overhear whispers among her fellow staff. They rallied. Some had experienced the same. This moment bore a spark, igniting something deep within her. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Her heart swelled with courage, and she stood tall, fists ready to fight. The hotel manager found himself facing her fiery gaze as she laid it all out: the inequities, the neglect, the sacrifices they all made for the glimmering facade of wealth just outside their reach. She spoke with passion, each word echoing through the halls, fearful and hopeful. Her voice trembled as she questioned the very foundation of this system that kept them voiceless. Around her, the tide began to shift. Staff listened, some even cheered her on, finding their own voices in her courage. Touching shoulders, whispered affirmations. Could one woman make a difference? As her plea resonated, she felt connected to something grander, a collective yearning for respect, dignity, and recognition. The aching question lingered in the air: would her fight find its place in the broader narrative, or would she fade back into the shadows of her life? And as the city lights flickered outside, Maria stood at the brink of change, the fire of her spirit igniting the possibility that one small act could change everything. What would happen next? The thrill of uncertainty urged her on, a promise of hope in every tear she hadn't yet shed. Maria could feel the energy shifting around her, like a tightly wound coil ready to spring. Tension filled the air, but it was different this time. It was hope, bravery mixed with frustrations long buried. She looked into the eyes of her colleagues, some filled with resentment, others with longing, but all with a spark that ignited the collective spirit. It was as if they were slowly waking up from a long sleep, and Maria was the one shaking them awake. Together, we can demand what we deserve. She shouted, her voice ringing through the corridor. It was a surprising sound, powerful and clear. The more she spoke, the more emboldened her fellow workers became. They began to share their own stories of struggle, tales filled with injustice and hard-earned dreams that felt just out of reach. "I've worked here 10 years, said Sandra, a housekeeper, her usually soft voice trembling with passion. "And I still can't afford to take my kids to the movies." A murmur of agreement rippled through the staff. "Me too." piped up Derek, the night clerk, his face flushed. Every holiday, every birthday, I'm juggling bills just to make ends meet. Enough. With each shared voice, the momentum built, a chorus of hearts resonating with the same desire to be seen, to be respected. Maria felt her heart swell. This wasn't just her fight anymore. It belonged to all of them. But as they rallied, the looming figure of the manager, Mr. Thompson, stood like a dark shadow at the end of the hall. Maria's stomach twisted with a mix of fear and determination. She would not let his smirk silence the hope that was being resurrected. "Let us take this to the unions," someone suggested, igniting another wave of agreement. Excitement rippled like electricity. Plans were formed, ideas exchanged. They would gather accountability in their hands. Yet doubt also crept in. Would anyone care enough to listen? Did the union even know they existed? Transformative ideas collided with deep-seated fear, but for the first time, hope felt stronger than despair. As they poured out their stories over the next few days, Maria led weekly meetings in the small break room forgotten by most, but now a battleground for change. Names began to be shared, faces turned from shadows to sunlight. The fear that had once paralyzed them chipped away with each revealing conversation. The truth was that Maria was terrified too. What if they were ignored? What if standing up for what they believed meant losing their jobs? But every time she locked eyes with her fellow workers, every time she heard their stories, she felt the fire reignite. They couldn't turn back now. Posters adorned the break room walls. Equal pay for equal work echoed through her mind as she meticulously wrote down each line, a testament to solidarity. It was a small beginning knitted together with brave voices. Days turned into nights and their plan gradually took form, yet the night before the big meeting with the union reps, sleep fled from Maria. She lay awake, her pulse racing as she wrestled with her thoughts. What if they failed? What if it was all in vain? But as dawn broke, bringing the soft light of a new day, her resolve hardened. They were fighters now. On the walk to the meeting, she could see her colleagues glancing nervously at one another, some whispering prayers, others glancing around as if to confirm that each step taken was in unity. Would this be the moment that changed everything? Maria thought back to that small stack of cash and the note with the words of gratitude. Tomorrow could be the day they stood on the edge of transformation, ready to change their lives for good if only they could find the courage to break through. With her heart thundering, she pushed open the doors to the conference room, ready to face whatever would come. Would this be the turning point, the moment the tides shifted? Or would they face yet another dismissal? With the stakes higher than ever, Maria's journey was at a precipice, and the answers were just beyond the threshold of that door. Maria stepped into the conference room, the air heavy with anticipation. Her heart pounded like a drum, matching the rhythm of her thoughts. This was it. The moment they had worked for, dreamed about, and feared. Around her, her colleagues shifted restlessly, their anxious whispers creating a low hum of uncertainty. But Maria felt this was their chance to break the silence that had long held them captive. The room was small, and its cold fluorescent lights made it feel even more suffocating. Mr. Thompson sat on one side, arms crossed, exuding an air of condescension mixed with annoyance. Maria felt a chill slice through her determination. How could they confront such authority? "Let us remember why we're here," she urged her friends quietly, keeping her voice low but firm. Her words were met with nods, but fear flickered in the eyes of those around her. As the union representatives entered, the energy shifted again. A tall woman with glasses and an easy smile introduced herself as Melissa. "I'm here to listen," she said warmly, her demeanor a stark contrast to Mr. Thompson's scowl. Maria offered a small smile back, drawing courage from this stranger. She caught Derek's eye, and he nodded, motioning for her to take the lead. With a deep breath, Maria stepped forward, an unexpected leader before a crowd of decision-makers she never imagined confronting. "We're here today because we need your help," she started, her voice steady despite the trembling in her hands. "We've been working hard for years, and we're not asking for much, just what's fair. Sandra found her voice next, echoing tales of her sleepless nights and watched bills piling high. I want my kids to live without fear of the next paycheck, she said, her words laced with desperation, yet there was undeniable strength. As each worker shared their stories, a powerful tapestry of truth emerged. The room grew charged, nearly alive, with shared emotions. Maria could see the union reps exchanging looks, whispers of concern crossing their faces. Each angry confession and heartfelt plea was a block in the foundation they were building together. Then, Mr. Thompson broke the tension with a heavy sigh. I don't see how this is relevant, he interjected, his voice cold, as if trying to freeze the potential warmth in the room. But Maria didn't falter. This is relevant because we are real people, she replied, her heart pumping fiercely. Our lives don't stop when we leave this hotel. You can't overlook our humanity. That made an impact. She could see it in the way Melissa leaned forward, her expression shifting. For the first time, Mr. Thompson's smugness cracked, uncertainty creeping in. As the discussion continued, Maria held on to that flicker of hope. Questions arose about their wages, their hours, their rights. With every query, she felt lighter, as if weight was removed from shoulders she didn't know she carried. Are you really prepared to fight for this? Melissa asked, turning her attention back to Maria and her colleagues, her voice hopeful yet heavy with concern. Yes, Maria said, determination lacing her words. We have to fight for what's ours. No one else will. Cheers erupted in the room, resonating against the walls. The sound echoed with power and ferocity, the kind that promised a new beginning. But as the applause faded, a creeping doubt snaked its way back into Maria's mind. Could they truly withstand the pushback? Melissa stepped forward, her demeanor earnest. I want to support you. But in this industry, change doesn't come easy. It's tough and slow. Suddenly, Maria felt a surge of fear and anticipation intertwining. Would the strength gathered in this room be enough to face the inevitable obstacles ahead? The reality hit hard, they were stepping into a fight that could determine their futures. With hearts racing and hopes high, they stood on the brink of a new chapter in their lives. Maria glanced at her colleagues, each face telling its own story of resolve and strength, yet tinged with fear. She took a breath, ready to face the challenges ahead. But just as she thought they had the support they needed, she realized that the hardest part was yet to come. Could they turn this newfound unity into real change? With the weight of the world on her shoulders, she knew they had to act fast. Tomorrow promised the push for action, but would they be ready to rise together? Maria tossed and turned that night, her mind racing with a mix of hope and anxiety. The conference room replayed in her thoughts, the faces of her colleagues both inspiring and daunting. Each story shared, each voice raised, filled her with a sense of purpose. But the echoes of Mr. Thompson's dismissal haunted her. Morning arrived too quickly, sweeping away a much-needed sleep and leaving her bleary-eyed. As she slipped into her uniform, she could feel the weight of her responsibilities settle onto her shoulders like a heavy cloak. They were counting on her to lead them. She wondered if she was strong enough. When she arrived at the lobby, the familiar scent of fresh coffee mingled with the faint smell of cleaning supplies. It felt like home, which was comforting yet strange. Why should she feel at home amidst such uncertainty? Her colleagues gradually trickled in, and the nervous energy in the air was palpable. Maria could see it in their eyes, the anticipation, and beneath that, an undercurrent of fear. She met Derek's gaze, and behind his cautious smile, he mirrored her trepidation. Are we ready? He asked softly, his voice barely above a whisper. Maria nodded, summoning another layer of courage. We have to be, she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. Gathered together before their shift, the team shared quick glances and hushed conversations. They reminded each other why they were there and the lives they wanted to improve. Maria could sense the collective strength building among them, an invisible thread binding them together. Just then, Melissa appeared, her presence filling the room with calm resolve. I'm here for you, every step of the way, she said, her tone reassuring. I've spoken with some contacts, and I believe we can begin the groundwork for negotiations today. Negotiations? Maria echoed, her heart fluttering. This was real, it was happening. What does that mean? It means we present our case to management, Melissa replied. And we need to be united. Every single one of you must stand firm. As her words settled, fear flooded back. What if management refused to listen? What if their stories fell on deaf ears? They had to prepare for all outcomes. The team gathered in a huddle, their faces serious. Maria took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of their unity. No matter what happens today, we're standing together, she spoke firmly. We deserve better. We fight for our families, for each other. Together, they echoed, the word emerging as a powerful mantra, a promise of solidarity. As they made their way to the conference room, heartbeats echoed like a drum in her ears. She could feel the energy shifting around her. This was the moment they had been waiting for, but the thrill of it mingled with fear. What if they faced backlash? What if things turned confrontational? Once inside, the room felt different. Mr. Thompson sat across the table, flanked by executives, all looking decidedly less confident than the day before. Maria noted this shift, aware that perhaps their shared voices were beginning to ripple through the walls of power. Let us get to the point, Mr. Thompson said, his tone clipped. You all know why we are here. And we have a lot to discuss. Maria's heart raced. Would they listen? Would they really hear what needed to be said? She glanced back at her colleagues. Their resolute expressions reminded her of why this fight mattered. Suddenly, before she could speak, Derek stood up, his posture straightening. We have something we want to say, he declared, his voice strong. Maria squeezed his hand, their connection like an anchor. She watched as the others rallied behind him. Could this moment truly reshape their destinies? But then a thought pierced her heart, was it too late for them to turn back? What consequences awaited them if everything went wrong? The tension was tangible as the silence settled, thick enough to cut. All eyes were on Derek, but Maria felt the weight of the moment press down hard. Together she whispered just for herself. They had to believe in their strength, their resolve. But would the strength of their unity be enough to sway the tide, or would they be met with stormy resistance, pushing them back into silence? Derek took a deep breath, preparing to speak again. But before he could, Maria suddenly felt a shift, a flicker of apprehension as the reality of their fight loomed larger than life. Would this be the beginning of change, or just another battle lost in the shadows of indifference? Derek inhaled deeply, the moment stretching before him like a taut wire. We want to talk about our conditions, he began, his voice gaining strength with each word. It's not just about pay, it's about respect. We deserve to be valued for our work. As he spoke, Maria felt the tension shift. The room seemed to lean in closer, engaged, but the executive team's expression was a mix of annoyance and disbelief. Mr. Thompson's jaw tightened, a flicker of disdain crossing his face. Respect? He scoffed, shaking his head. You're all here for a paycheck, just like everyone else. Let us not pretend otherwise. A collective gasp rushed through the group. Maria's stomach twisted. Could Derek's bravery be met with such crude dismissal? Sir, Maria stepped forward, her voice trembling yet resolute, this job means more to us than just money. We've committed our lives to this place, to the guests, to each other. That commitment should mean something. The words tumbled out, laced with desperation and fire. The room fell into a suffocating silence. Maria could feel her heart pounding against her ribcage, her courage hanging by a brittle thread. Her colleagues, standing steadfastly at her side, mirrored her anxiety. Mr. Thompson glanced at the executives beside him, trying to gauge their reactions, as if they were debating whether to snuff out the flicker of fire Maria had ignited. You think the company owes you something more? This isn't a charity, he replied, voice now dripping with sarcasm. If you want more, you need to prove why you're worth it. A wave of anger surged within the team. Derek stepped closer to Maria, lowering his voice as if sharing a secret. Maria, we need to show them how important we are. We can't back down now. Melissa's eyes gleamed with determination. Let us tell them our stories, she said, scanning the room. Let them know who we are beyond these uniforms. I started working here after my mother fell ill, Derek began, his voice steady but raw. I wanted to support her, but I also found a sense of family here. I work hard every day so this hotel can be a welcoming place for others. As he spoke, one by one, others started to share their stories. Maria's heart soared as each soul bared their struggles and triumphs. There was laughter when Laura shared her anecdotes about difficult guests, and tears when Sam recounted how their salary barely covered rent. The executive team sat in stunned silence. Mr. Thompson shifted uncomfortably in his chair, the power he normally wielded beginning to ebb away as the real humanity of the workers shone through. But just as hope began to swell in Maria's chest, a voice from the back broke the moment. This is all very touching, a senior executive interjected with a thinly veiled snarl, but this is still a business. The air thickened with dread. The gap between their heartfelt expressions and the cold corporate reality felt insurmountable. Derek turned to Maria, his face a mask of frustration. Do we go further? Do we leave everything on the table? We can't stop now. There was an electricity in the room, a murmur of resolve from the team. Each looked to Maria, the weight of their collective fate resting in her hands. What if they fire us? Someone asked, fear creeping back into their voices. We can't think that way. Maria shot back, the fire in her belly igniting. They've already underestimated us. We fought through hard days together, and we can't stop fighting now. We have to show them we're more than just their workers. Standing taller, she looked into each face. Are you with me? The room erupted into affirmation. Together. They shouted, a rallying cry against the cold indifference that threatened to swallow them whole. But just as their unity reached its peak, Maria caught sight of Thompson's narrowed eyes. The room crackled with tension. This might turn into a standoff. Would their collective courage withstand the storm of retaliation? As they held their breath, waiting for the next move from management, Maria's heart raced. There they stood, poised on a precipice that could either lead to transformation or disaster. Together she whispered, holding on to hope even as fear coiled around her heart. Would this bond be enough to change everything, or would they find themselves plunged deeper into the shadows? The silence hung heavy in the air, thick with uncertainty and the weight of unsaid words. Mr. Thompson's narrowed gaze seemed to press down on them, the tension rolling like waves crashing against a rocky shore. Maria's heart hammered in her chest as she braced for the response. Let us have some fun with this notion of togetherness, shall we? Thompson said, his voice smooth yet laced with bitterness. You think banding together will change the bottom line? That you can leverage your shared experiences for a better outcome? Each word felt like a punch, but Maria refused to flinch. The memory of her colleagues' stories rang in her ears, a tapestry of struggles and triumphs woven by their collective spirit. Maybe this isn't just about money to you, he continued, leaning forward as though trying to intimidate them. But for most of us, this is about numbers. No, Derek interjected, his voice steady, cutting through the charged atmosphere. It's about people, and that's where you're wrong. Eyes glanced between the executives and the workers, tension bubbling over. Maria could see Derek's resolve shining, a beacon of hope. He was right. They all felt it, the connection and the power their stories held. Imagine what this place could become if you valued us, Maria said, her voice rising above the chaos. We go beyond the numbers. We create experiences for every guest who steps foot in this hotel. We look out for one another and for the guests. Isn't that worth more? A moment passed where the room held its breath. Thompson blinked, and for a heartbeat, uncertainty flickered in his eyes. Then, his resolve turned back to contempt. "You're naive if you think you can sway me with emotional pleas. You want change? Show me results." With that, he dismissed them with a wave of his hand. The executive team rustled as they began to rise, preparing to leave the room. "No!" Melissa shouted, the urgency bursting forth. "We can't let this end like this. They will never understand unless we push harder." "Exactly," Derek affirmed, nodding adamantly. "We have to show them how valuable we are, and we need to do it now. We can't wait for their approval." "Are we ready to fight?" Maria asked, and her heartbeat soared at the determination in the room. "To show them our worth?" "Yes." The response rang as more voices joined in, louder and more resolute than before. Fear was slipping away, replaced by the burning fire of defiance. They were all scared of potential consequences, yes, but the fear of remaining voiceless was far greater. Maria took a deep breath. "We could organize a walkout, something they can't ignore. Make it clear that we will not stand for being undervalued." Gasps echoed through the group, mixed with awe and excitement. They were about to turn the tide. Their stories had stirred something deep within, igniting a collective spark of rebellion. But then, the door swung open, revealing a familiar face. It was Sarah, a longtime employee who had been absent for weeks, recovering from a personal tragedy. She stood in the doorway, eyes wide with concern. "What's happening?" Maria's resolve wavered for a brief moment. How would Sarah react to this call for protest? Would she join them despite everything? "Sarah, we're standing up for ourselves," Maria called out. "Will you join us?" The air hummed with anticipation. Would their strength inspire Sarah, or would their movement lose momentum with her hesitation? As Sarah took a step forward, Maria knew the stakes had never been higher. What would Sarah decide? And could they truly make a difference in a place that considered them less than just employees? Sarah stepped into the room, her eyes flickering with confusion and pain as she took in the charged atmosphere. The fire that had ignited among her colleagues flickered, momentarily dimmed by her absence. Maria could read the worry etched into her features. The struggle beneath her surface was palpable. "Stand up for ourselves?" Sarah repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. "But what if it backfires? What if we lose our jobs?" Her words hung heavy in the air, grounding. It was the same fear that had kept many silent for too long. But the fire that had sparked within Maria refused to die. "Together, we're stronger," she said, forcing her voice to remain steady. "We can't wait any longer for change. We're fighting for every person in this hotel. You know how hard we work, how much we give." Derek stepped forward, his expression earnest. "We're not just striking out against a boss. We're standing up for our dignity. Sarah, you're one of us, and we need your strength now more than ever." Sarah's gaze shifted to those around her, the familiar faces filled with determination, fear, and hope. Maria could see the wheels turning in Sarah's mind, the weight of her absence suddenly lightening just a little as she lingered within the community they had created. "Just tell me what you want me to do," Sarah finally said, her voice breaking a bit as she bravely stepped forward into the circle. "I'm with you." Cheers erupted, reverberating off the walls. That moment, the affirmation of their collective will, sparked the energy back to life. The fear faded into the background as excitement surged through the group. "Tonight we plan," Melissa declared. "We need to gather as many of our coworkers as we can and make sure everyone understands the stakes." Maria felt a sense of purpose wash over her. They would not only fight for their voices but also rebuild their community. Hours passed as they brainstormed, drawing out plans and strategies. Each idea poured forth like a river filled with passion, purpose, and unity. They shared stories of why they were fighting, from missed promotions to false promises. Laughter mingled with tears as they rallied one another. But with night falling, dread also settled like a blanket. What if the executives were right? Would it truly change anything? Would they face consequences that felt unbearable? Do you think they'll listen? Sarah asked at one point, her voice a mix of hope and fear. They have to, Maria answered firmly, her own uncertainty gnawing at her. They can't ignore us forever. As they wound down, they agreed to meet again the next morning, the energy still crackling in the air. But as Maria lay in bed that night, sleep evaded her. She stared at the shadows dancing on her ceiling, her mind racing. What if they couldn't pull it off? What if this was all in vain? Her heart raced, battling between fear and hope. The thought of all those colleagues, their dreams, struggles, and fight wrapped around her tightly. Would they emerge victorious, or would they be crushed before they even got a chance to stand? Maria licked her dry lips, a new resolve forming in her chest. They had to try. When dawn broke, it brought with it an electric energy, a singular question pulsing through their minds. Would they band together and change the course of their lives? And just then, a chilling knock came at the door. Maria's heart raced as the knock echoed through the silence of the early morning. For a moment, she hesitated, her resolve faltering. She exchanged concerned glances with Sarah and Derek, who were still gathering their coats and notes from the previous night's meeting. Who could it be? Sarah whispered, her brow furrowed with worry. Maybe it's just someone from another room, Derek suggested. But Maria's gut churned with a sense of foreboding. Another knock, louder this time. The sound went through her like a shock, and she moved toward the door almost instinctively. Stay back, she said, her voice barely stronger than a whisper. She pressed her ear against the wood, listening intently. Open up. It's management. A deep voice boomed from the other side. Panic washed over her like cold water. Had their plans been discovered? Did someone betray them? We need to think fast, she murmured, turning back to the group. Should we hide? I don't think we can run from this, Sarah replied, her voice steadying just enough. If they're here, they probably already know something's up. Derek nodded. We should face them. Together. With a deep breath, Maria turned the knob and swung open the door. The figure before her was not what she expected, a tall, broad-shouldered man in an embroidered jacket, flanked by two other staff members from upper management. The weight of authority was palpable in the air between them. Good morning, the man said, infusing his voice with an air of formality that seemed rehearsed. We'd like to have a word with you and your team. Maria felt her heart thump loudly in her chest. About what? About what's been happening around here, these meetings, this talk of striking. We need to discuss this immediately, he said, his eyes scanning the room, catching every vestige of their plans. An overwhelming silence filled the space. Maria could see the tightening of Sarah's fists and the nervous bouncing of Derek's knee. 1,000 thoughts raced through her mind. Were they prepared to confront them now? Did they even have a strategy for this? Do you want us to come down to HR? She asked, forcing confidence into her voice. I think it'd be better if we spoke here, the man said, stepping slightly closer. His demeanor was disarming, yet the underlying threat coiled around his words. Let's talk then, Maria said, hearing her own bravery surprise her. They ushered the management team inside and took a seat in the center of the circle they had established the night before. Tension pooled in the room. Quiet replaced the cheer from the night before, like a stage turned dark in the middle of a performance. Let's skip the pleasantries, the man said, shifting in his seat. Are you planning to go through with any of this, dissent? Maria glanced at her teammates, gauging their reactions. She could see that flicker of defiance igniting in Sarah's eyes again. We're tired of being overlooked, Sarah spoke up unexpectedly, her voice firm, commanding. We want recognition for our work. We want to be heard. The man leaned back, clearly taken aback by Sarah's sudden strength. That's a serious thing to say. Understand, there are consequences. Maybe it's time we talk about those consequences, Derek added, a fire now fueling his own words. Because this isn't just about one of us. This is about all of us. The air thickened as Maria's heart began to pound, adrenaline kicking in. She could feel the energy of her colleagues rising, confidence mixing with the fear of the unknown. But what would happen next? Would they really navigate this conversation without crumbling? As she searched her colleagues' eyes, she saw they were ready to stand firm. Together. Fine, the man said, his tone shifting slightly. Let us see how brave you really are. And with that, the stage was set. An invisible thread between fear and courage sparked. Would they expose their vulnerabilities, or could they harness their strength? Maria felt the restless energy build all over again. With a mix of hope and dread, she braced for what was to come. Each heartbeat fired an unending question. Could they truly change everything, or was this just the beginning of an even bigger battle? The silence that followed hung heavy, almost suffocating. The broad-shouldered man studied them, and for a moment, Maria felt as though time had frozen. She clenched her fists, channeling her anxiety into determination. They had come too far to back down now. Let us talk about what you've been discussing, he continued, his voice low and steady, but with an edge that hinted at impatience. Your little meetings, they can't go on. Maria's heart thundered as she exchanged a quick glance with Sarah and Derek. She could see the resolve in their eyes mirrored her own fear and determination. What if we don't care if they go on? Sarah shot back, her voice a blend of defiance and resilience. The moment the words left her mouth, Maria sensed the shift in energy. It was as if a spark had ignited. They were standing up, no longer hiding behind whispered conversations. The man leaned in, shifting into a more confrontational posture. You need to understand the stakes here. You think this is just about you? It's about the reputation of the entire establishment. The impact of dissent ripples far and wide. The impact of your disregard has already rippled through us, Derek interjected, the calm in his voice a stark contrast to the tension in the room. We're not asking for much. Just a fair shake for the work we put in every day. Maria could see the man's facade cracking. Behind him, his companions exchanged furtive looks, caught in the unexpected momentum that was building within the room. It felt like they were tipping the scales, gaining power they hadn't realized they could wield. Fair shake? The man scoffed. You think labor is a game? Dissent has consequences, and you don't want to know what they are. Then let us talk about those consequences, Sarah pressed, her voice rising in passion. We want to know what's at stake for us. We want to know how our work is valued, if it even is. A tension gripped the air. The man's jaw tightened, and for a moment, Maria thought he might back down, but instead, he leaned forward, determination in his eyes. Do you know the implications of a strike? Do you understand that it would mean losing your jobs? Fear surged through Maria, but she feigned confidence, sensing that her team needed her to hold the line. And staying silent means we'll continue to lose our dignity, she replied firmly. So, what's it going to be? Are we going to leave this conversation with more truth, or just more threats? He opened his mouth as though to respond, but the door creaked open suddenly behind them, and a familiar figure stepped into the room. It was Michelle, their supervisor, and her shocked expression brought the momentum to a screeching halt. What's going on here? She demanded, her eyes flitting from the management team to Maria and her colleagues as they stood defiantly. The atmosphere shifted, and Maria's heart raced and knew it was a development they hadn't anticipated. She feared they'd lose their moment of strength, but something deep inside urged her to speak. We're standing up for ourselves, Michelle, she said, her voice unwavering. We want to be heard. Michelle's brow furrowed, and she took a step closer. What do you mean? Everything. Sarah exclaimed, her voice full of raw emotion. The neglect, the hours we put in, the way we've been pushed aside. We need to have a real conversation. There was a flicker of uncertainty in Michelle's eyes, and the silence that followed buzzed with possibility. Would she join their fight, or would she side with management once again? With every breath, Maria realized this might be the turning point they'd long hoped for. Or could it crumble like so many moments before? The tension crackled, each second pulling them closer to a decision that could change everything. "Michelle, will you stand with us?" Maria's voice broke through the air, charged with hope and fear. And in that moment, everything shifted once more. Would they finally see the support they so desperately needed, or would they face a new wave of challenges ahead? The silence was electric as Michelle stood there, caught between two worlds. The management team exchanged wary glances, and Maria held her breath, praying the tension wouldn't snuff out the spark they had ignited. "My team, my family," Michelle finally began, her voice quiet but fierce. "I see you every day, working hard while I push you to meet that impossible perfection. I know the sacrifices you make." A flicker of life surged through the group. Hope flickered like a candle in the darkness. "And it's time we address that," Michelle continued, finding her footing. "You deserve to be heard, and you deserve to feel valued." Gasps punctured the air, and Maria felt a rush of joy flood through her. "Do you mean it?" she asked, her heart racing with hope. "Absolutely," Michelle replied, her gaze unwavering. "I've seen what you do, and I won't turn my back on you. You're right to fight for better conditions." The room erupted in cheers, voices overlapping in a symphony of elation. The atmosphere shifted once again, the weight of the collective struggle morphing into shared determination. Mr. Thompson scowled, anger flashing across his face. "This isn't a game, Michelle. You know the risks involved." "Maybe it's time for a change in the game," Michelle fired back, her resolve clear. "If we can't stand together, what's the point of it all?" The executives shifted uncomfortably, and Maria amplified their movement forward. "If we're going to pursue this, we need to stand united," she urged the team, her voice firm. "Whatever happens from here, we do it together." "Yes," echoed a chorus of voices. Derek stepped forward, his expression resolute. "We're going to meet with the union again, and this time we'll have the support we need. A walkout is just the beginning if they won't budge. Let's show them we mean business." Sarah chimed in, a fierce fire glimmering in her eyes. The energy in the room swelled, a determined wave gathering steam. They felt powerful, ready to face any challenge thrown their way. Maria's heart brimmed with pride as sisterhood and brotherhood had been born out of struggle. Mr. Thompson's face twisted in disbelief, but the momentary unease from the executives revealed cracks in their armor. "You can't organize against us," he warned, growing frantic. "Watch us," Derek challenged, standing taller. "We'll make our voices heard," Maria declared, her voice steady. "We're done being silent." With a newfound sense of purpose, they began to discuss the logistics of their plan. Maria felt exhilaration tingle through her as they committed to flyers, gathering support, and preparing to meet the union. They would transform the fear of losing their jobs into passionate action. Hours flew by as their plans took shape. And when day turned to night, they didn't stop. Together, they dialed into a united front against the system that had long taken advantage of them. The rally day arrived like clear skies after a storm. Proud chants echoed outside the hotel as a crowd gathered, a mix of colleagues and supportive allies from the community. The atmosphere was electric with anticipation, the energy was contagious. Maria stepped to the front, heart racing yet full of joy. This was her moment, not just as a worker but as a voice for change. "This is about respect and dignity for all of us," she shouted, arms spread wide as a wave of support surged through the crowd. Together, they roared in unison, each word ringing through the air like a battle cry. The executives were summoned to the scene. When they finally appeared, it felt like confrontation was inevitable. But Maria stood grounded, ready. They weren't alone anymore, they had a community behind them, a collective spirit that could not easily be dismissed. "Mr. Thompson, let us talk about our demands," Maria declared, fearless and firm. We want fair wages, reasonable hours, and respect. Let us find a way to work together. It was a long conversation filled with back and forth, the tension palpable in the air. But each time the executives leaned against their old ways, Maria and her team pushed forward, holding on to their aspirations. By the time the sun dipped low, a shift had occurred. Unbelievably, a compromise emerged, not everything they wanted, but acknowledgement of their effort, their voices finally recognized. It was a victory, even a small one, nurtured from desperation and nurtured to fruition. When Maria walked back to her colleagues, tired but elated, tears streamed down her face. "We did it!" she cried. They hugged, laughter bubbling with relief as they finally felt seen. And as Maria turned to see the city skyline, she realized that it was more than just a backdrop, it was a promise of hope, symbolizing a brighter future. They had stepped out of shadows and into the light, armed with their stories and united by the power of their bravery. "Together, we can move mountains," she whispered to herself, heart full to bursting. With courage renewed, they inhaled the fresh air of change, ready for whatever came next, victory or new challenges. But this time, they would face it together. So now, if you felt the thrill of this change, if this story of courage resonated within you, don't wait. You need to subscribe now to this channel so you never miss another inspiring tale. Leave a like now to feed that algorithm. Your support is crucial. I want to hear from you. Comment your reactions and feelings about this incredible ending below. And share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Let us spread the ripples of change far and wide.